Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. You're listening to a new The Hacker Factory podcast with hacker maker Phillip Wylie. You're about to discover what the role of a professional hacker entails, the different specializations it holds, and what it takes to learn and become one. Enjoy the conversation as Phillip and guests unveil the secrets of professional hacking, a mysterious, intriguing, and often misunderstood occupation. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hacker Factory podcast. I'm your host, the hacker maker, Phillip Wylie. In each episode, I have a unique guest sharing their story and tips on how to get started in pen testing or other areas of offensive cybersecurity. I'm very excited today to have Christian Gonzalez on. Christian is one of my former students, a good friend of mine, former coworker. He was a student in the very first class I taught and was one of the first students out of my classes that got a pen testing job. He's done a really good job with his, in his career, and has done great, learning skills and getting certifications. And so it's an honor to have you on the show, Christian.
Thank you for having me.
So how is the new year treating you so far?
So far, it's been good. As you know, I had a pulmonary hypertension about 3 weeks ago. I was in the hospital for about a week and a half. Thank God that they found this issue, and I'm actually slowly feeling better, up to speed. Healthier. I'm off my asthma pump, so everything is getting a lot better. Looking forward to the rest of the year. Hopefully, no more health issues or speed bumps along the road. So yeah.
Well, sorry about the health issues. Of course, we spoke and I knew about that. So good that that's improving and just kind of something for all of us to think about. I mean, yours wasn't controllable, but just kind of, a reminder to tell us all that we need to take care of ourselves because, health, is it, you can't, you're not guaranteed good health. So we should do what we can to stay healthy.
Definitely. I mean, and one of the contributing factors was not sleeping well, doing too much work, staying up all night, pen testing and stuff. So have to kind of slow it down, everything like that. Reduce my stressors. That's what the doctor says.
Well, that's good. Yeah. And in this field, it can be, the late hours can be kind of tough. I mean, especially, even studying for like certifications and stuff. So I'm sure, a lot of people have experienced that going through the OSCP or something like that, all the hours you have to put in studying because, not all of it can be done at work and a lot of it has to be done after hours.
Yeah, definitely. I honestly told him it wasn't a stressor for me because I actually love learning about pen testing, but he says, you might love it, but your body is running on empty basically all the time. Yeah, so...
So yeah, the sleep thing for sure. We all need sleep to be healthy. Mm-hmm. So why don't you tell our listeners about yourself?
Obviously my name is Christian Gonzalez. I've been in IT for about 12 years now. Originally started doing help desk. Then I went into Western Governors University. Started getting my bachelor's and slowly got my A plus, my network plus, security plus. Through WGU, which is pretty nifty because I didn't have experience or networking with people at the time. So it was killing basically two birds with one stone. Got certifications and it got me my internship to my help desk job. And from there, jumped me up to desktop support to being the assistant manager of that IT department. After being there for 3 years, I moved up to Dallas. Started doing sysadmin stuff for about a year and a half, then jumped into Inwood National Bank, and that was more vulnerability scanning, more SOC analyst type of work. And so from that point on, that's when I started learning about security, and I started noticing that, you know what, this is actually something that I would love to do, from a day to day. I started going into hack this site and hack the box, and started practicing building my own labs at home, practicing pen testing. I didn't know it was considered pen testing. I thought it was just hacking websites. Learned a little bit of HTML. From that point, I got a job offer from IBM, and that was vulnerability scanning and doing some minor pen test shadowing from that pen test team. And from that point, I loved it, and I ended up finding what's it called, the group Dallas Hacker Association. My first day there, I heard about your class that you were having, and it was an intro to pen testing with Georgia Wiseman's book. And I honestly, from that point on, sitting in your class, it opened up a different level of IT security that I never thought I would have. It gave me the spark that I had originally from desktop support, but in a different sense where pen testing is different on a day-to-day. I honestly, from now, it's mostly building up on certifications. When it came to OSCP, it was a lot of work. I'd actually thought that I knew a lot that I didn't, but learning from that point, it actually humbled me to going back and studying again. After your class, I had to build up on a lot more skills. I didn't much have to learn coding. I learned to read Python and modify code, but I don't believe I actually need to learn how to be a coder to be a pen tester, which is something that I've always had no passion for, coding. And at this point, I'm actually trying to do the OSWE, which is web application. Having a little bit struggle with it, but keep on trucking with it, coming along, just because it has a little bit more coding that I'm not used to. But in a little rough draft, a summary, this is basically my life currently.
Yeah, you did pretty good too, because to be able to get a job, not too long after you were in the class. And I know that, found out about the resource Virtual Hacking Labs from you because you learned about it from someone at Dallas Hackers Association that had recently passed their OSCP certification. So yeah, you got a job pretty quick after, actual pen testing, but it's really good that you had the vulnerability scanning experience. So, I'm sure that had to help a lot in getting other jobs or finally getting your first pen test job.
Yeah, but honestly, the vulnerability scanning portion on my resume was what gave me that opportunity to do the consulting on pen testing. That opened the doors for me into pen testing and learning tools on Rapid7, using Nexpose and using Metasploit Pro. Doing that with that company for about 8 months. Consulting is a lot of work. If anybody has ever done consulting, you'll understand that it's a night and day gig. You're trying to do a lot of work for this. I never felt it like it was a lot of work for me because I was learning new tools every day and continuing the learning process and networking with people, traveling all over the nation. And by the time that my daughter was born, an opportunity came out to go back to IBM, but this time as a full-time pen tester there. So I completely took the gig, went to IBM, and was just doing internal network pen testing for them, which is great. This is actually what I have a passion for network pen testing and trying to break in and go into Active Directory and stuff like that. From there, joining US Bank, and from having that interview and not knowing that you were going to be in that interview, which was just such a small world, not honestly, because US Bank is such a big company, I thought it was a different group with a different entity, and then seeing you in that interview, I was like, wow, it's such a small world, ending up being interviewed by you.
Yes, as far as from a teacher's perspective, it's really pretty cool to see people like yourself that joining the same team. And then when I was at a different company, I had like some other, like Sheila, one of your former classmates. She was actually doing some web app pen testing for a company where I was a red team lead at, as well as another person from our local community. They were both doing web app pen tests for that company. So it's really kind of cool when you see your students involved. So that was cool to get to work with you for a while, but you're really impressed the way that you've progressed, and the hard work definitely shows.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's your guidance that's actually helped me, and showing me the way of like, hey, open up a Twitter, and you'll be able to interact with people right now during COVID and not being able to go to too many conferences. Interacting on social media, just as little as I do, has opened up so many doors for me, and I have met a lot of mentors. Like your friend Wirefall. I know I could shoot him a text or a DM, and he's always there to respond. With tips and tricks on whenever I get stuck on something. Darren, Freddie as well. He's always been so helpful. It's just people that you have in your right hand, that have always been helping me on studying tips, on what certifications I could take next, teaching me the mentality that it's not just about taking a certification and getting the certification. It's also learning the course material and actually learning something. He's like, sometimes you could actually impress someone, in an interview, showing them that, hey, well, I don't have the certification yet, but I actually learned all this material and I could prove it that I actually know this material. So that mentality that all you guys that are veterans to InfoSec and pen testing have shown me has been great, honestly.
Yeah, one of the things you've done that's been good too is, mentors are helpful, and just people that can help in general, because you've got people that are starting out at the same time as you that could be like study buddies. You're sharing things that you learn with each other, but it was smart that you kind of diversified your mentors. So you just didn't depend on one person. You had multiple people to call upon, and that's a good thing because everyone has a different point of view, and there's things that you can learn from some person you may not be able to learn from the other. Someone may be stronger in web app pen testing. Another one may be stronger in Active Directory. So it was good that you did that. And the fact that you're leveraging networking, because one of the things I see like on LinkedIn all the time, it's, it can be tough to get into cybersecurity, but the people I see that are succeeding are people like yourself that's networking. If you're connected, if you know people in companies, it's going to be easier to get the job than if you just submitted your resume, because the odds of the hiring manager getting your resume sometimes are kind of few to none.
Oh, definitely. And that's something that really opened my eyes, because the HR representative from US Bank reached out to me, and commander working there pulled my resume, and that helped me get my foot in the door quicker, because I have known commander for years already because of DHA, and he's actually was, if it wasn't for him, I think my resume would have sat there in HR, for months, and he pushed through it, recommended me, and I was interviewing within a week or two, and that's what I try to preach to everybody trying to get into the field is networking helps 100% of the time. You could know everything, but without knowing anybody, it's only going to take you so far.
Yeah, and especially when you're just getting started out, because when you're just getting started out, you're, hopefully, with luck, you've got certifications or something that help you get that if you don't have the experience. So the networking is very huge, because I've seen one of your former classmates that's, I'm not going to mention him publicly because I don't want to embarrass anyone, but they've been trying for a long time to find a job, and it's just they're not networking. I may have seen him at Dallas Hackers like once or twice, but that's it, and never really see them out there. And the people that are networking, a lot of people that were just getting started, in recent years, around the time you got started or before that, were people that you were seeing at these places all the time. Because I would have people reach out to me saying, do you have any people that you recommend for entry level pen testing jobs? And I would recommend, some people from the class at the time, or people I knew that was looking, but then people I knew from DHA, because I knew they were volunteering at conferences, they were doing presentations at the different meetups, and you could tell that they were pretty sharp and had a desire to learn. So it was easy to recommend them. So definitely the networking thing is huge. I mean, I'm just really glad that we, mention that in this episode, because I'm seeing a lot of that, people having a hard time, and you just can't emphasize enough that networking helps.
Right. And when I volunteered in my first B-sides in Dallas, I had just moved to Dallas, and I didn't know anybody. And they recommended from DHA, they told me, hey, well, if you want to meet anybody, network with people, volunteer. It's like, at least you'll get to know all the volunteers, and they'll recommend you people, and you'll go into all the other meetups. And honestly, from that point on, from having 0 friends in Dallas, I ended up growing to having at least 40, 50 different friends, and being able to network and reach out to someone, not just IT related issues, but friends that I could actually reach out to and talk to on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, volunteering also helped a lot, in those conferences.
Yeah, that's good that you brought up volunteering. It's another area that can be very helpful. Is get out. It's like I've kind of compared it. I've seen past students or people new to the community that came in that really didn't know that many people, but by the time they volunteered at a conference, you'd have thought they'd been in the community for years. That they get to meet so many people, and people in the industry have a respect for people volunteering to help put these conferences on and help others.
Right. And it's a lot of work. I mean, that goes down in the background that nobody realizes, and that honestly, B-sides at DAW was my first conference ever, and being able to volunteer, seeing how everything runs in the background that nobody gets to see. Once I started doing conferences, you appreciate them a lot more, because that what goes down in the background, and you get to, like you said, talk to people and be more relaxed and appreciate all the volunteers that are doing their work, and sometimes just even step in and try to help them pass food out, for everybody and stuff like that. It's a great experience.
So we kind of already mentioned here that you have some certifications. So you have your OSCP. So for learning, are there any kind of tips you have for people trying to learn a skill? Because I mean, when it comes to something like the OSCP, you have to have the skills to get through the exam. It's not like memorizing questions and answers like some exams.
When it came to the OSCP, I honestly, there's a Abachi has like a prep guide that came through, and he has new boxes that started on VulnHub, and they go all the way up to starting with Hack the Box boxes, and he tells you basically everything that you would need to start and get ready for the OSCP. When I did that, and then I started researching reviews of what people would do for the OSCP beforehand, and I opened up Cherry Tree, and I have a lot of notes and links that I could share if people would send me a tweet and ask me for them. I could give you a whole page of links that actually started helping me with the OSCP, that by the time I reached out and started, I felt like I didn't have any missing pieces of the puzzle. Let me see. Yeah, it's Abachi's guide that actually helped me out a lot. Also, I did the CEH, the Certified Ethical Hacker, before the OSCP. I realized that by the time I learned everything from CEH, I had learned it from Security Plus. So I could have probably gone around it and gone through something else beforehand. And that's when the networking came back and helped, to where I couldn't afford just buying outright OSCP all at once at that time. And I found virtual hacking labs, and virtual hacking labs kind of gives you hints on what the vulnerability is, and also what to search for. And the more you go through those labs, the harder they get, but the less hints you get. So by the time you're at the end and you should know the material, there's no more hints. And at the end of that certification, which is 50 machines, you also get a certification. So I think it's a really good source of material that takes you from beginning to end and teaches you a lot by the time you try to attack the OSCP.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned Abache's stuff on the OSCP. I totally forgot about that resource, because I guess kind of what happened was that was the go-to resource, and then TJ Knoll came out with his write-up on the OSCP, and that's gotten a lot of attention. So I'd actually forgot about that resource. So based on you mentioning Cherry Tree, I take it that you're really big on keeping notes. So how important is that to you as a pen tester day to day?
Honestly, if you would see my Cherry Tree database, it's probably over 200 gigs of just notes that I take. It's notes, screenshots, links. On a day-to-day basis, when it comes to pen testing, I even have just one page of command lines that I do. Honestly, when it comes to pen testing, there's so much material and so many commands that I don't expect everybody to memorize it, but at least having everything on a note, you could just go back and copy paste, build up your methodology on what you're going to do step by step. It helps out a lot, and instead of you trickling down and tripping over your own footsteps, having your own notes helps so much. On you taking 3 hours on the scan or a pen test when you found that vulnerability and trying to find that resource again, to having that note and you just being able to go back, Control F, find, type in a keyword and being able to have it there right there and then. Like I said, note taking is priority when it comes to pen testing, as you have to take notes for all the recon that you're doing. All the ports and all the material that you're actually getting your hands on.
Yeah, it's one of the things that definitely is good about note taking, because you sure definitely don't want to go back and Google how to do something again at pen test after pen test. And there's sometimes you use something you may not use it again for a year or two. So definitely the note taking is a good thing.
Yeah, and especially whenever when at work you have to validate some of the findings, and having to, if you don't memorize it and you go back and you just, okay, well, I'm trying to find this SSL nmap command, and you have it there. You just put the name, copy and paste, and the results are right there, instead of having to Google it and takes you 15 minutes just to find that result, when you could have just been a little bit more organized, have all your notes, and finish with your pen test a lot quicker.
Yeah, that's great advice there. So what else kind of helps you as a pen tester? Some other tips and tricks that you like to share with our listeners?
The one thing that helped me a lot when it came to pen testing is building up a methodology. At first, when I learned just going through OSCP or going through Apache stuff, I think I was just scanning and, well, let me just go down the list on ports, and not really knowing what I was doing, trying to find low-hanging fruit all the time, but not knowing there's a particular way we should find low-hanging fruit. So I was just trying to basically grab a machete and try to take down all the high grass, and at the end, I said, well, I didn't find anything. Then once I started taking the OSCP, and they kept on talking about methodology and build up your methodology. So I started doing research on GitHub, and there's a lot of people that have good methodologies that I started, modifying to my liking and to what I do specifically. Because, everybody thinks differently, so I like to go into like a top-down approach when it comes to my pen testing, so scan, look at the ports, review your resources and stuff like that, and by the time I started doing all that, I started finding a lot more exploitable machines because I wasn't just looking for low-hanging fruit, but I actually knew what to look for now because I built up that methodology, so I believe in being patient, building up a methodology. If you find something, or if you find something and you think that's it, and you're hitting it for 45 minutes and you're going down that rabbit hole, take a break, come back to it, put a note, turn around, try something different, because at the end of the day, it could be just a rabbit hole and it's not going to get you anywhere. And I learned that the hard way when I did my OSCP. It took me 3 attempts to actually pass it, and I had that problem of, I found something, and I would hit it for 6 to 8 hours, not sleeping, and coming back the next day, and it's like, so it was this port, not that port, and I just wasted my time all day. So once I built up that methodology, by the time I think, in my point of view, I perfected it. On my 3rd attempt, I didn't even take the 24 hours to do the exam. It only took me 13, because I knew the process and how to build up. And if something looked, strange, and it looked like it was too good to be true, I would leave it to the end, because I knew it probably was going to take me to a rabbit hole that I didn't want to go through. And so that's my belief, and be patient when you're trying to do something like this. And you won't find exploitable machines all the time, and that's what somebody has a misperspective of pen testing, is that we're hacking and cracking things here and there, especially if you're doing it in a live environment. Before you start breaking stuff, let's get just make sure you're not going to take down a bank and they're going to lose money at the end of the day, before you start doing anything crazy.
Yeah. So since you've worked both in consulting and as an internal resource for a company doing pen tests, could you kind of describe kind of the differences between the two?
Yes. So when we were doing consulting, and we were always had access to a certain amount of time, a certain amount of material, and we couldn't touch anything. If we had findings, depending on the client, it was a free-for-all, and do as much as you can when you can in that allotted time frame. And you could, if you take down a service, it was okay, because they want to see what an actual pen tester would do in that time frame, or if they would bring up any alarms for the SOC, or they would be able to block us completely from our pen test. And once I started doing pen testing internally, it turned completely different, because I wasn't used to not being able to do as much as I wanted to on a pen test, and for us here is more of a learning, whatever we find, we speak to the team that's managing that application. Hey, we found this. And if it's something critical, you can stop your pen test and you can let them know while you're going through it. And they might give us a time frame in the middle of the night when the service isn't running or nobody's on it, that we could actually try to run that exploit, But working internally, it's a lot more critical not to break something, because most of it, at least 90%, is always production environment. And we don't want to break anything completely while we're doing anything for an internal. So that's the cleaner aspect of it. I miss sometimes the consulting aspect, because, like I said, it was a free-for-all, and it felt like if I was the bad guy trying to do something and get away with it. And with pen testing internally is more of a trying to teach people that we have all these vulnerabilities and they have to fix it before an actual attacker comes in and breaks in.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. We're getting down towards the end of the show. Is there anything you'd like to mention that we haven't talked about, or any shout outs or anything you'd like to do?
Shout outs. Don't put me on the spot. I'm gonna start getting nervous. No. For everyone, like I said, my mentors, you, Darren, the Wirefall, my buddy Wetworks, all those guys, Commander. Thank you for helping me get to this level. There's still a lot to learn. That's something that you guys always preach to me. What I do recommend for anybody that's trying to get into the field, it's not easy. Always keep studying. Security changes on a day-to-day basis. There's always new 0 days that we all have to learn how to patch, how to exploit, how to pen test. So keep on being curious. That's what I recommend. Keep on being curious about technology and security. Always practice. There's going to be some off times that you're not going to be able to do it. I mean, spin up your own VMware lab and learn Active Directory on the side. Something that's going to help you when you're pen testing at home or networking or anything like that. Is tinkering with stuff is always going to help. So it's not going to come naturally to anybody. So just keep on practicing and don't give up.
Yeah, that's some valuable advice. Very good. I think this is going to be very helpful to our listeners. I appreciate you joining. It was good talking to you. I'm glad we're going to be able to share your story with the listeners, and I think it's going to be of great value. So thanks again.
Oh, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you inviting me over. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you on the next episode.
BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Hacker Factory podcast with Phillip Wylie. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.